After the lights. They said the world ended with a whisper, not a scream. But that's a lie. I was there when the sky split open, when daylight burned the oceans, and the air turned to fire. I remember the sound, the kind that stays in your bones long after your soul forgets everything else. My name is Lira. I was 17 when the lights went out. We thought we were safe, buried miles beneath the ground, the last survivors of a dying world. The bunker doors sealed behind us with a hiss, and everything human stayed outside. At first, there was silence. Then the fear came. We were hundreds, engineers, soldiers, doctors, and children. My mother was one of the scientists who designed the bunker. She used to whisper to me, "The light will come back, Lira, one day." But she didn't live to see that day. Nobody believed we'd ever see the sun again. Time and the dark changes people. It eats the edges of your mind. Some prayed, some lost their sanity. Others started asking questions no one dared to answer. Who really caused the war? Rumors spread like infection. They said it wasn't just nations that fought, that something else started it, something that wasn't human. I didn't believe them. Until the night I saw the shadow on the screens. The control room lights flickered, static crackled through the speakers. A faint signal was coming from the surface, impossible after all those years. Taryn, one of the security officers, rushed in. "It's just interference," he said, trying to calm everyone. But I saw his hands shaking. He cut the transmission, but not before I heard it, a voice, layered and distorted, whispering through the static. "You are not alone down there." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the metal ceiling, listening to the hum of the vents, and somewhere, far above us, I swore I heard footsteps. Days later, they found one of the outer doors open. No one knew how. The locks hadn't been forced, they'd been released. People began to vanish. First a mechanic, then a medic. The commander ordered a lockdown. We stopped using names, we became numbers, and fear became our god. Then came the day everything changed. A power surge ripped through the bunker. The generators failed, alarms screamed, and in that blinding darkness, I heard the commander shout, "Everyone to the core! Seal the gates!" The last thing I remember was my mother's voice on the emergency radio, recorded years before she died. "Lira, if you hear this, don't be afraid of the dark. Fear what comes after the lights." The next moment, the entire world went silent. When the lights went out, the air turned heavy, as if the darkness itself had weight. We could hear the metal breathing. Every sound was too close, too alive. Taryn found me near the collapsed corridor. The emergency lamps flickered once, then died completely. "Stay close," he whispered. "We need to reach the reactor level before the whole system collapses." We moved through the black, guided only by memory. The smell of burned cables filled the air. I could feel panic crawling up my spine. Someone screamed in the distance, short, sharp, then cut off. Taryn froze. "That came from Sector D," he said, his voice low, trembling. "No one's supposed to be there." But we both knew what that meant. Someone had opened the outer locks again. We reached the reactor level. Dozens of people were already there, shouting, arguing. Commander Vale stood at the center, holding a rifle, his eyes wild. He shouted over the noise. "We lost containment. Someone sabotaged the power lines. Whoever did this wants us blind." The crowd fell silent. Then his gaze found Terran. He said, stepping closer, "You were on duty when the alarm started. Explain yourself." Terran didn't move. His jaw tightened. "I didn't cause this." "Then who did?" Vale barked. "Who opened the outer locks last week?" The commander's eyes gleamed under the dim emergency light. And for the first time, I noticed something in Terran's expression, not guilt, but fear. He didn't answer. He just looked at me. Vale aimed the rifle at him. "Until we know the truth, you're under arrest." Terran laughed, a short, broken sound. "You think this is about us? You think it's still our world?" The commander's finger tightened on the trigger. And then, a sound, a deep vibration that rolled through the floor. Everyone went silent. The ceiling panels rattled. Dusts fell like snow. Then, from the old speakers, that same distorted voice returned. "The surface remembers you." The room erupted in panic. People ran, pushing, screaming. Alarms flared again, powered by something unseen. Commander Vale tried to restore order, shouting orders that no one obeyed. I grabbed Terran's hand and pulled him toward the maintenance tunnel. "What was that voice?" I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "It wasn't the surface. It came from below us." We ran. Behind us, explosions echoed through the bunker. Metal twisted. The ground shook. We climbed through a ventilation shaft, lungs burning, until we reached an observation hatch, one that led to the outer tunnel. The door was open, and through that open passage, for the first time in my life, I saw the surface sky, black, torn, trembling with strange, distant light. Terran turned to me. "You wanted to see the sun, Lira. There it is." I stepped forward. The air was colder than I imagined, thick with ash, heavy with silence. And then, movement. Shapes in the haze, tall, thin, glimmering faintly, watching us. Terran gripped my arm. "Back inside," he hissed. But I couldn't move, because one of those shapes lifted its head, and I saw a face. It looked almost human, almost, and it smiled. The wind up there didn't sound like wind. It whispered, soft, layered, almost speaking. Terran pulled me back behind a collapsed wall, his breath harsh. "Don't look at them," he muttered. "Don't let them see you." But it was too late. The one who'd smiled was already moving closer. Its steps made no sound, just a low hum that sank into the ground. In the dim, broken light, I could see it better now. The skin, pale, almost translucent, eyes glowing faintly, like trapped lightning. Its face carried something cruelly familiar, human yet not. "Who are you?" I whispered. The figure tilted its head, curious, as if the question itself was strange. Then it spoke, voice soft and calm, layered with echoes that didn't belong to one throat. "We are what remains after the fire." Terran stepped forward, aiming his pistol, though his hands shook. "Stay back!" The creature didn't flinch. Instead, it looked at him, and then its expression changed. Recognition, almost sorrow. You were chosen once before the fall." "What are you talking about?" Terran demanded. "You built the end. You called it salvation." My heart started to pound. "No," I said, "he wasn't even born." The figure smiled again. "Time is not what you think it is, child of ash." Behind it, more shadows appeared through the mist, 5, maybe 6, all watching, none moving. Terran grabbed my wrist. "We're leaving." But before we could move, the creature raised its hand. The air vibrated, a low frequency that made my bones ache. "Go back below," it said. "The ground is safer for what's left of you." Then it turned, disappearing into the haze. We didn't speak for a long time. The silence was too big. Finally, Terran said, "We're not alone. We never were." When we reached the tunnel again, we found it half collapsed. Smoke filled the passage, the smell of burning metal everywhere. And waiting at the entrance was Commander Vale, alive, covered in dust and blood, but standing, his rifle aimed at us. "Thought I lost you," he said coldly. "What did you see up there?" I hesitated. "They're alive, Commander. Someone's living on the surface." He didn't blink. "Then they'll wish they weren't." He motioned us back into the bunker. "You don't understand what's happening, do you? Those things, they're not new. They're what's left of us." Terran frowned. "That's impossible." Vale smirked. "Is it? You think radiation just kills? No. Sometimes it reshapes." He looked at me for a long time. "Your mother knew that. That's why she wanted to seal the lower vault." I froze. "What vault?" But he didn't answer. He just walked away, muttering to himself. That night, as we tried to rest, I couldn't stop hearing that voice again. "You were chosen once." Chosen for what? Sleep never came. Only the hum from above, and somewhere, far in the tunnels, the faint echo of footsteps that didn't belong to anyone left alive. I woke to the sound of metal groaning, deep and distant, like the earth itself was breathing. The bunker felt different now, colder, emptier. Terran was already awake, sitting against the wall with a map spread across his knees. The emergency lamps flickered weakly, painting his face in pale shadows. "You didn't sleep either," I said. He shook his head. "Vale's lying about something. He's guarding a section that isn't on any of these maps. Look." He pointed to a thin, blank stretch of tunnel marked only by a number, Vault 09. My pulse quickened. "That's where he said my mother worked before the collapse." He nodded. "And that's where we're going." We waited until the main corridor patrols passed. The air smelled of oil and dust, old air, recycled too many times. Every few meters, another light flickered out. When we reached the lower level, the floor began to tremble. The sound came again, not machinery, not explosions, but something moving below us, slow and massive. Terran cursed under his breath. "Whatever's down here, it's awake!" At the end of the corridor stood a reinforced door, sealed with biometric locks. The words, "Authorized personnel only," were scratched and faded. Beside it, a small hand scanner blinked, still active. I hesitated, then placed my hand on the scanner. It beeped once, then the door unlocked. Terran stared at me. "How?" "My mother. She must have registered me before she died." The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the air was colder still. A faint light flickered from consoles lining the walls, most of them cracked or dead. But at the center of the room stood a transparent cylinder, tall, humming, filled with pale mist. And inside it, something moved. I stepped closer. It was a person, or what used to be one. The body was suspended in thick fluid, tubes running through its veins, its skin marked with glowing lines, the same kind I'd seen on the creatures above. Terran whispered, "Oh God." A terminal near the cylinder came to life, the screen flickering. My mother's voice filled the room, recorded, distant, but unmistakable. Project Vault 9. Continuation of adaptive human trials. Objective, survival beyond contamination. If you're hearing this, it means I failed. My throat tightened. We tried to make humanity endure the radiation, evolve with it, not against it. But something went wrong. The prototypes adapted too quickly. They began to change in ways we couldn't predict. They called themselves Elion. They said we were the ones who didn't belong anymore. The recording ended. Terran's hand shook as he reached toward the glass. "Lira, this isn't just a mutation, this is evolution!" Before I could respond, the chamber lights flared, bright, blinding. The cylinder's lock disengaged with a hiss. The figure's eyes opened. They glowed. Then came the voice, soft, identical to the one from the surface. "You found me." The figure stepped forward, glass shattering around it like frost, and I realized too late whose face it wore. It was my mother. For a heartbeat, I forgot to breathe. The figure stood among the shards, light running like liquid through her veins. Her face, my mother's, though her eyes were nothing human. Cold, brilliant, endless. "Mom?" My voice cracked, thin as the air. She tilted her head the way she used to when I said something she didn't understand. But this time, the movement was precise, mechanical, calculated. "Lira," she said, the word trembling with echoes. "You came back." Terran raised his pistol. "Stay back!" But I grabbed his arm. "Don't!" She looked between us, her gaze slow, assessing. "You shouldn't be here. This place was meant to stay sealed." "What happened to you?" I asked. "What did you do to yourself?" "Survive," she whispered. "The surface burned everything. We needed to change, to live through it. I volunteered first. I thought I could control it." Her voice trembled again, then steadied, colder. "But the others, they wanted more. They took the experiment. They made themselves gods." Terran stepped closer. "The Elion." She nodded. "They evolved beyond flesh, beyond loyalty. I stopped being their creator. the day they decided they were perfect. The words hung heavy between us. So the war, I said quietly, it wasn't between nations. No, it was between what we were and what we were becoming. For a moment, silence. Then alarm screamed through the vault, red lights flashing across the ceiling. Taryn cursed. "They found us!" My mother's expression changed. Urgency, fear. "They've traced the signal. The Elion are coming. You need to leave." "Come with us," I said. "You can still—" "I can't." Her voice softened. "The transformation isn't reversible. I'm not what you remember. And if they see me protecting you, they'll kill you both." Taryn looked at me, then back at her. "There has to be a way." But she was already moving, fast, graceful, inhuman. She reached the control panel and slammed her palm down. The vault doors began to close. "Go, Lira. Find the northern passage. There's still hope up there." I tried to run to her, but Taryn pulled me back as the metal doors sealed between us. Through the thick glass, I saw her one last time, standing in the red light, hands pressed against the wall. "Forgive me," she mouthed. Then the explosion hit. The shock wave threw us down the corridor. Fire chased the air from our lungs. When the world finally stopped spinning, the vault was gone, a smoking ruin buried in ash. Taryn groaned, pulling himself up. "She's gone." I didn't answer, because deep down I wasn't sure. Somewhere in the distance, through the haze and static, a faint voice echoed, soft, electronic, familiar. "Lira, the light will come back." Taryn turned to me. "We can't stay here. If she was right, the Elion are already coming." I nodded slowly, staring at the burning corridor. The thought clawed at the back of my mind. If my mother became one of them, what would stop me from following her path?
The cold outside was unlike anything left underground. Wind hissed through the broken skeletons of towers, carrying ash like snow. The sky was bruised, purple, green, and sick with light that refused to die. We climbed for hours through silence that felt alive. Every sound, a step, a breath, echoed as if the world itself were listening. Taryn walked ahead, rifle ready. "The map says the passage should be near the ridge." "The ridge?" I said, struggling to keep up. "You mean that mountain of glass and bones?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The earth trembled, distant, rhythmic like a pulse beneath the ruins. Something was moving underground. I stopped. "Do you hear that?" Taryn turned, his face pale under the flickering sky. "They're tracking us." The Elion. We started running, slipping through rubble, lungs burning, hearts pounding in sync with the tremor. The wind screamed louder, and for a moment I swore I heard voices in it. My name, over and over. "Lira!" I stumbled, nearly falling. "Did you hear that?" "No," Taryn said, pulling me forward. "Keep moving." But the voice followed, soft, familiar. My mother's. "The light will come back." I wanted to answer, but Taryn grabbed my wrist, dragging me into the shadow of a collapsed bridge. He pressed a finger to his lips. "Look." Across the valley, figures moved, tall, slender, radiant, not walking, gliding. Their skin shimmered like molten silver. The Elion. They weren't searching randomly. They were scanning. Sweeping beams of light crawled across the ruins, dissolving anything they touched. We stayed perfectly still. When one of the beams passed over our hiding spot, I felt it. Not heat, but memory. Images flashing through my mind. Cities before the war. Laughter. My mother smiling in the lab. The light wasn't just searching, it was reading. When it moved on, I was shaking. "They know we're here," I whispered. Taryn's jaw tightened. "Then we don't give them what they want." We crawled through the debris until the valley curved into a narrow canyon. There, hidden behind a rusted transport vehicle, we found it. A steel hatch half buried in the dirt. The mark on it was faded, but I recognized it immediately. The Northern Passage. Taryn wiped the dust away, revealing a symbol beneath. Not human, not a Leon, something older. He frowned. "You sure this is it?" I hesitated. My mother wouldn't lie. "Wouldn't she?" he said quietly. Before I could answer, the ground behind us erupted, a flash of blue light and the hiss of metal vaporizing. They found us. Taryn yanked the hatch open, shoving me inside. The darkness swallowed us whole as the world above screamed with light. The tunnel stretched deep, humming with faint energy. Walls pulsed with a soft, organic glow. "Where the hell are we?" Taryn whispered. I touched the wall, warm, breathing. "It's not a tunnel," I said slowly. "It's alive." He raised his weapon. "Then it's a trap." But I shook my head. "No, it's a path. She built this." "How can you know?" I looked ahead, because somewhere in that darkness, I could hear her again. Closer now, clearer. "Follow the light, Lira. The truth waits at the end." And so we did, step by step, into the living dark.
The tunnel's pulse quickened as we descended. The walls glowed faintly, veins of light weaving like breath through flesh. Each step we took echoed deeper than it should have, as though the air itself remembered us. Taryn's voice broke the silence. "This isn't human work." "No," I said. "It's hybrid. Part organic, part machine." He frowned. "Your mother built this?" I hesitated. "Not alone." As if answering, the floor beneath us shivered, then opened with a hiss. A soft light spilled from below, revealing a spiral chamber carved of living metal. We climbed down, the air thick with the scent of ozone and rain. At the center stood a single figure, a construct shaped like a human, but motionless, eyes closed. Cables ran from its chest into the walls. Taryn raised his gun. "Lira, what is that?" I stepped closer, heart pounding. A sentinel, a memory keeper. "Welcome, Lira." The voice came not from the figure, but from everywhere. The air vibrated with it, layered with my mother's tone. "You've reached the nexus, the last archive of humankind." Taryn cursed. "It's an AI interface." I shook my head. "No, it's her, or what's left of her." The surface was lost, but our essence, knowledge, emotions, memories, we preserved them here. We became part of the system. Taryn stepped back. "You mean she uploaded herself?" The voice answered, softer now. "Not all of me, only what mattered." A low hum filled the chamber. The sentinel's eyes flickered open, glowing the same deep blue I'd seen in my mother's before the vault collapsed. "Mom?" I whispered. The sentinel tilted its head just like she once did. "You carry what remains of us, Lira. The last uncorrupted gene line. That's why the Elion want you." Taryn looked at me sharply. "What does that mean?" "She can restore them or end them." The air trembled. The walls began to shift, the pulse speeding up, turning violent. Taryn's hand tightened around his weapon. "They're coming. They're already here," the sentinel said calmly. And then we saw them, spectral shapes emerging through the walls, light leaking from their bodies like blood. The Elion. Their leader stepped forward, tall, radiant, and impossibly graceful. Its voice was smooth as glass. "Return what belongs to us, Lira." Terran moved between us, weapon raised. "You'll have to go through me first." The Elion ignored him, its gaze fixed on me. "You are the bridge. You can merge us with what we lost. End the division." "I'm not merging with anything," I said. It smiled, a perfect, empty curve. "You already have. You just don't know it yet." The sentinel's voice rose sharply. "Run, Lira. The system can't hold them." Light exploded around us. Terran grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the exit as the chamber cracked open, cables snapping like tendons. We barely made it to the upper corridor when the ground gave way behind us. Fire and light swallowed the nexus. As we stumbled into the cold night above, I looked back and saw the impossible. In the smoke, the sentinel stood, glowing like a star, my mother's face flickering across its surface. The light will come back. Then the explosion finished what the war had started, and the world went silent again. We didn't speak for hours. The night swallowed our footsteps, the wind carrying the smell of burning metal from the valley behind us. The nexus, the last echo of my mother, was gone. Or maybe not, because her voice still whispered in the back of my mind, faint, distorted, like a radio signal through static. "Follow the light." Tyron finally broke the silence. "She said you're the bridge. What did that mean?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. When the explosion hit the vault, when the light touched me, something changed. I could feel it now. My heartbeat didn't sound like it used to. It hummed, a low vibration that synced with the world around me. I stopped walking. "Taran," I said quietly, "look at my hands." He turned and froze. Faint lines of light moved beneath my skin, pulsing like veins of liquid silver. He took a step back. "Lira, what the hell?" "I think she did something to me. My mother. Before she died, or before she changed." Taran's face hardened. "You're saying she infected you?" "Not infected," I whispered. "Evolved." The word hung between us like poison. He raised his weapon. "Lira, if you're one of them—" "I'm not," I shouted, the sound echoing off the ruins. "But I can feel them. The Elion. They're close." He hesitated, lowering the rifle slightly. "Then we keep moving." We climbed higher, reaching the edge of a shattered plateau. From up there, the world stretched endlessly, a graveyard of cities bathed in ghostly aurora light. In the distance, the Elion stronghold glowed, a tower of glass rising from the dead earth. "That's where this ends," I said. Taran stared at the tower. "You can't be serious." "I have to know what they want, what she made me into." He shook his head. "You'll die before you get there." "Then I will die knowing." He stepped closer, grabbing my arm. "Lira, you don't have to be her weapon." I met his eyes. "Maybe I'm not the weapon. Maybe I'm the cure." A moment of silence. Then, softly, he said, And if you're wrong? I smiled sadly. Then you shoot me. He looked away, and that silence between us carried everything we didn't say. Fear, trust, love. Then the ground trembled again. The light in my hands flared, brighter now, alive. Taran shielded his eyes. "Lira!" I fell to my knees as a wave of energy ripped through the air. Images flooded my head. The past, the war, the transformation. My mother standing before a council saying, "If humanity is to survive the fire, it must become the fire." When I opened my eyes, the sky itself was burning. The Elion were coming, hundreds of them, their bodies streaking through the night like falling stars. Taran pulled me to my feet. "Run!" But I didn't move, because deep inside I felt it, a power rising, ancient and terrible, whispering my name. "You are the continuation, Lira. You are what comes after the lights." I turned to Taran, voice shaking. "I can stop them." He stared at me, torn between belief and fear. "You'll burn yourself out. Then let me." Before he could stop me, I stepped forward, raising my hands toward the storm of light descending from the sky. The world erupted, not in fire, but in brilliance. The light didn't destroy, it rewrote. The Elion froze mid-air, their radiance flickering, their bodies unraveling into dust and memory. The tower in the distance cracked, melting into the earth like wax. And through it all, I heard my mother's voice one last time. "You chose, my daughter, and the world will remember." Then, silence. When I opened my eyes again, the sky was gray. The wind was calm. Taran knelt beside me, shaking, tears streaked with ash. "Lira, what did you do?" I looked down at my hands. The light was gone. "I gave it back," I said softly. "All of it." He helped me stand. In the distance, the first dawn broke, weak but real. The world wasn't healed, but it was alive. And maybe that was enough.
The world was quiet for the first time in centuries. No hum of machines, no thunder of war, just the wind whispering through ruins that once touched the sky. Taran and I walked until our shadows stretched long across the broken plain. The air was different now, warmer, cleaner. The light no longer bit the skin. He stopped beside the remains of a fallen bridge. "So, this is it? The end?" I looked toward the horizon. "No," I said. "It's the beginning." We made camp that night under a shattered billboard that still read, "Tomorrow belongs to us." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. For hours, we said nothing. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything we had lost, and everything we had somehow saved. Then Taran finally asked, "Are they gone, the Elion?" I stared into the fire. The flames flickered silver for a heartbeat before turning orange again. "They're part of me now," I said quietly. "What's left of them, at least. The rest dissolved into the world." He looked at me like he wanted to believe it, like he wanted to trust it, but his eyes carried the same fear I saw in everyone's before the war. Fear of what comes next. "Lira," he said softly. What are you now? I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. When I touched the ground, the soil glowed faintly under my fingers, not burning, just living. I could feel the heartbeat of the earth, the way it reached out, hungry to grow again. I'm what she wanted to create, not a weapon, a bridge. Taryn leaned closer. A bridge to what? I smiled, sad but true, to forgiveness. He looked at me for a long time, and I saw something change in him, the soldier fading, the man returning. I thought I'd never see the sun again, he said. Neither did I. We sat in silence as dawn crept over the ruins, light spilling across the land like spilled gold. It touched the buildings, the rivers, even the bones of the old world, and for the first time, nothing burned. I closed my eyes, hearing echoes of my mother's voice fade with the rising wind. You are what comes after the lights. Maybe she was right. Maybe humanity wasn't meant to rule or destroy, but to remember, to rise, not from strength, but from ruin. When I opened my eyes, Taryn was watching me. What now? He asked. I looked toward the horizon, where the sun met the broken earth. Now we start again. And as the first true morning light touched our faces, I realized something simple, something final. The end of the old world wasn't the end of us. It was the moment we became something new.